An unarmed teenager in Seneca, South Carolina was shot and killed by a police officer last month, and a new independent autopsy found he was shot in the back. The officer initially claimed Zachary Hammond tried to run him over, but these findings would contradict that story. Well, earlier I spoke with Zachary's parents, Paul and Angie, as well as the family attorney, Eric Bland. I first asked how the parents are doing.
It's been a most difficult past couple weeks. Right now we don't sleep or eat much, and there's a great loss in our life, as I guess as you could. I don't think only a parent that lost a child knows, and I wish no one to have to know that. But we're still right now trying to figure out how to move on, and then we're trying to find answers to what happened.
Mm-hmm. I know it's difficult, and I can't imagine what you are going through. I appreciate you guys so much for speaking to us. But I wanted to ask you to just give us a picture of what your son was like.
He was funny. He was hard-headed. He was stubborn. He was a teenager, and he liked to ride dirt bikes, play video games. Sports. He liked to be outside. So.
Mr. Eric Bland, can you talk about exactly what happened here? I mean, an independent autopsy ordered by you all has found that Zachary was shot in the back. And so set the stage based off of what you know, what led to his killing?
Well, much of what we know has been found out through our own investigation. As we have said repeatedly in the press, very little has been shared with the public. Nothing really has been shared with us. The identity of the officer hasn't been shared. The circumstances around the supposed drug sting haven't been shared. We haven't been told whether there's been any body camera or dash cam footage, and certainly that hasn't been released. So we were left with trying to piece together what had happened, and we've from several witnesses and from an individual that actually shot some video that we've released to the press, we've learned that Zachary and his girlfriend, they were on a date, their first date, Tori Martin, first went to McDonald's for her to get an ice cream cone, and then he went to Hardee's to get a hamburger. Now, supposedly a confidential informant or somebody gave the police a tip that Tori was either going to buy some drugs or sell some drugs. Not Zachary. Zachary's name wasn't mentioned. And the police descended upon their car when they turned to the back of Hardee's to go through the drive-through and pinned basically the car in. And the officer who came from the exit side of Hardee's came out with his gun drawn, a .45 caliber. And then on the right side, on the passenger side, on Tori's side, an undercover police officer came with a gun drawn as well. And within a split second, 2 shots were fired. One that hit Zachary in his rear left shoulder and the other that hit him in his rear left chest. And the officer claimed that Zachary was driving at him and he had to shoot in order to protect himself. But the physics, the ballistics and the physics of the trajectory of the bullet and where it entered Zachary's body, bullets fly straight, they don't take left turns. He was behind Zachary, and under any reasonable interpretation of the events, he could not have feared that his life was in danger or he was going to suffer physical injury such that he had the right to use deadly force. There's very strict guidelines on when you can discharge weapons into automobiles that are moving, because if you hit the driver and incapacitate the driver and the car's in gear, the car becomes essentially a missile that can cause further damage. There was no gun in the car. There was no appreciable amount of money to be able to buy drugs. There was no appreciable amount of drugs other than what we're told may have been personal consumption drugs for Tori Morton. She was arrested and charged with a simple drug paraphernalia charge that you pay a ticket for. So this was a horribly drawn up wrong sting operation that went horribly wrong. And a 19-year-old who weighed 121 pounds and was unarmed is shot and dead, and these parents are left with no explanation.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism